I was aware of my physical body lying there on that hospital bed, but I was not in it anymore. It almost felt like that body was so small and I was too big to even fit into that.
And at no point in that time were you like, oh shit, like, I don't want to die. Ah!
It's okay, we're all gonna die. It's okay, we're all gonna die. It's okay, we're all gonna die.
Welcome back, everybody, to It's Okay, We're All Gonna Die, where we talk about death and its funny way of clarifying how we want to live. And I have the perfect guest for us today who experienced just that, a near-death experience that she's going to tell us all about. It's Anita Moorjani. And she is, well, first off, I can't wait for you guys to listen to this woman. She has a beautiful voice and a wonderful story, but she also is a best-selling author, best-selling millions of copies, I believe, what I read, of a book called Dying to Be Me, and many other books since then, by the way. So she has several books out. And just briefly, so you know, kind of the gist of what's going on here. After battling late-stage cancer, Anita fell into a 30-hour coma and experienced a profound near-death experience that completely changed the way she saw life. And that's what we're going to get in today, and I can't wait. So welcome to the show, Anita.
Thank you so much, Julie. I'm excited to be here.
I'm so excited, and so are all of my followers, because I didn't say who was coming on, but I did say we'd be talking about near-death experiences, which so many people, find comfort in, and it's just a fascinating topic. So I'm sure you've told this story many times, okay, but I got to hear it. I kind of, take me back to where you think it's important to start, right? We all know you had a near-death experience, so we're going to talk about that. But take us to the beginning, where you think it's important to start.
Okay. So I had lymphoma, cancer, which spread throughout my lymphatic system. I was dealing with it for almost 4 years, and it progressed for almost 4 years. And then it reached a point where it was terminal, it was end stage, and my family were told by my doctors that these were the final hours. During some of the late stages of this time, I was being cared for at home. But in the final hours, I was rushed to the hospital. And at this point, the cancer, the lymphoma, had spread throughout my lymphatic system. So I had tumors the size of golf balls from the base of my skull all around my neck, under my arms, in my chest, all the way down to my abdomen. And you could see them protruding out of my neck and under my arms. Like I couldn't even put my arms down properly because of these tumors. And at that time, my body had stopped absorbing nutrition. So I was losing weight, and I weighed about 85 pounds. So I looked like a skeleton. Because I wasn't absorbing nutrition, my muscles completely deteriorated and they atrophied, so I couldn't walk, and so I couldn't stand. And even if I sat, I couldn't hold my head up. My head was hanging down.
So, real quick, guys. So what she's describing is the dying process. I mean, you were in the dying process because your body was not absorbing nutrition. That's what happens.
Yes.
You are getting weak.
Yes.
You can't even hold your trunk up. That's so a clear sign your body's going bye-bye.
Yes.
This is not happening anymore.
Yeah. Thank you. Yes. Mm-hmm. And that's exactly what the doctors were saying. And also, my lungs were filled with fluid. And so if I lay flat, I would be choking on my own fluid. So I had to be propped up. I couldn't breathe without the aid of piped oxygen. Mm-hmm. So I had piped oxygen. I had a nutrition tube. And of course, all the heart rate monitors, blood pressure, so I was connected to all these wires. And then my organs started to shut down and I went into a coma. And that's when the doctors told my family, my husband, my mom who was there, that these are the final hours, that my body was now shutting down. And exactly what you just said, I was in the dying process.
Yes.
The doctors told my family that I was not going to come out of this coma. So my family who were around me were really distraught. My mom was in tears. My husband was by my bedside holding my hand, willing me to come back. But unbeknownst to them, even though I was in a coma, my eyes were closed, I had actually left my body. And I could see, hear, and feel everything that they were talking about, everything they were feeling, everything that was going on around my physical body. And I wasn't seeing with physical eyes because my physical eyes were closed, but it was more like an awareness, like a 360-degree peripheral awareness. It was, when you use your physical eyes, you literally have to turn your head and you have to look at something and it comes into focus. But with this, it was like wherever I put my awareness. And I didn't quite understand what was happening at
I
first.
was just going to ask if you knew this was going on or if you were like not totally aware.
Not totally understanding, but the one thing I noticed was that, hey, I feel good. And that it was so welcoming because up until that point, I had been in so much pain and so much fear and so much discomfort. I feared death. I feared the disease. I feared the treatments. I hated being in hospitals. I hated the whole environment.
Right.
And I was in so much pain and fear and discomfort because I couldn't even sleep because of the fluid in my lungs. And I forgot to mention I had these open skin lesions where the toxins were coming out of my skin. Those were painful. So I had been in all of that pain and fear and discomfort. And it was all gone. Suddenly it was all gone. And I thought, wow, this feels incredible. And I wanted to tell my family, hey, I feel really great now. But I realized I couldn't talk to them. I was not in my body. I had no biology. I had no vocal cords. And so that's when I started to realize, oh, I'm going through the dying process.
Wow, I have chills. Every time I have chills the whole time you're telling the story. Wow, amazing.
And I wanted to communicate with them because they were distraught and they were crying. And I wanted them to not be sad for me because this felt so much better than I had been feeling up to this point.
Could you see yourself at that time? Could
Yes.
you see yourself in bed?
So slowly it was like I started to expand as I started to become aware of what was going on. And it's almost like you have to allow it to happen. I was welcoming it. And so I felt myself starting to expand. And I then became aware that I could see or I was aware of my physical body lying there on that hospital bed, but I was not in it anymore. And it wasn't even just that I was outside of it. It almost felt like that body was so small and I was too big to even fit into that. That was the feeling. It was like, wow, I feel incredible. I feel so light and free. And that body feels so small and insignificant compared to how I'm now feeling.
And at no point in that time were you like, oh shit, like I don't want to die. Ah! Like there was no sudden burst of fear or like, don't let me get too big. I don't want to go too away. That's where my human self right now is going, right?
Yes. And I believe that many near-death experiences would feel that if it was a sudden death, like if they were in an accident or a heart attack and they're fine 1 minute and then boom, the next minute they're like, no, I need to go back. But with me, it was a gradual where I was deteriorating and then I was in the coma and it's like everybody knew I was dying. And then it's like, oh my God, this is amazing.
Yeah.
And no part of me wanted to go back because I had been suffering for so long.
Yes.
And I was dealing with this cancer for 4 years.
Right.
And my family had been taking care of me and they were suffering. It just felt like such a release, such a relief to not be in that situation. Like, okay, I've come out of that nightmare.
Yeah. Okay, so you're expanding, you're getting bigger, you're starting to realize my body's there.
Yeah. And then, I could still see, hear, and feel everything that was happening. not just in the room that my body was in, but beyond, like down the hallway and everything that related to me. But as I kept expanding, it felt like this hospital scene started to get further and further away. And I started to become aware of a greater reality that existed beyond this physical one.
I can't wait. I go ahead, please.
And I started to become aware of beings that were around me. And they were really caring for me. I just felt so much love from them, just unconditional love. And one of those beings was my deceased father, my dad, who had died 10 years prior. Now, it felt like there were a lot of beings there to support me and welcome me. And I never expected that. I never thought that, wow, there's all this love waiting for me on this side.
Because you were young, first off, right? I mean, you didn't have any people that you knew that died.
Not many. My dad.
Yeah.
And one best friend
Which
who
you'll
died
talk
from
to.
cancer.
Yes. Anyway, I keep interrupting you. I'm sorry, but
No, it's good because it prompts me where to go.
Yeah.
But I didn't have like a whole lot of deceased people because I was still young. I was 42. And so I was, so there I was with these beings, and I only recognized a couple of them. But yet all I felt, even from the ones I didn't recognize, was just pure love, just unconditional love. And I don't remember feeling this loved in my physical life ever before, the way I felt there. Because when I grew up as, I'm Indian. My parents are ethnically Indian. I went to a British school, but we grew up in Hong Kong, which is predominantly a Chinese city. It was a British colony at the time. So I was in a multicultural environment, and I never fit in. I was bullied as a kid. I didn't fit in even with my parents' culture. My dad wanted me to be groomed for an arranged marriage. I didn't want that. I used to disappoint my dad. In my culture at the time when I was growing up, at least, in my community, there was a lot of gender disparity. And so men were favored over women. Sons were favored over daughters. So I always felt like I was not wanted because I was a girl. I always felt that I was inferior, that our worth was only measured by how valuable we were to the men in our community. So I grew up with that kind of thinking.
All right.
And so, I used to rebel against it, but still I always felt that I was a disappointment to my parents. And so this turned me into a people pleaser. I was a people pleaser, a doormat, and I was always afraid of disappointing people. And so I had actually lived my life thinking I was a disappointment to my dad. Now here I am on the other side with my dad, his spirit, and we don't have our physical bodies, so it's literally spirit to spirit, soul to soul, or energy to energy. You recognize each other instantly. And you don't communicate with your voice because no vocal cords. It's almost like two spirits, two essences merging, and you know exactly what the other person wants you to know. And I expected judgment from my dad because I was never the perfect Indian Hindu daughter. I ran away from an arranged marriage, and so I had shamed him and disappointed him.
That's for another podcast, okay? I want to hear about this later.
That would be a fun one.
Yes. Okay, go ahead. Yes.
And but all I got from my dad was pure, unconditional love.
Even just watching you say this, like, it makes me want to cry. People will watch this, but many people will just listen to this. But even just seeing your eyes and, I can like feel it, I can feel it in you that just how beautiful that must have been. Finally, or maybe surprising. I don't know,
It was surprising, but beautiful because I spent a lifetime living in fear. And that is something that I want to touch on later as to why I believe, I even got cancer was because I lived a lifetime not being myself, hence the book Dying to Be Me.
Yes.
I lived a lifetime of being a people pleaser, a doormat, being what everybody else wanted me to be, thinking everybody else's life is more valuable than mine. And I repressed my life to the point of killing myself, of getting ill. And I never felt my life mattered. I never felt I mattered. And it was my dad who, in my lifetime, instilled fear in me, fear of not being good enough, fear of being a disappointment. My entire life, he instilled the fear in me. And it was in death that he freed me from that fear.
Wow. Wow. And we will get to, just so everyone knows, like we're gonna touch on the whole fear cancer thing, because obviously a medical professional, we're gonna talk about that, just not right now, because I wanna keep talking about what happened in those 30 hours of you being in a coma. So you see your dad, or you feel your dad, however it is, and he expresses this to you. And is it like just a sudden knowing? All of a sudden, like all of that fear, all that stuff of the human world washes away? It's washed away?
It's washed away. So, it's like two essences, two spirits, you're not limited by your body. And it's like two energies coming together. And you know exactly what that person wants you to know. And they know what you want them to know.
Wow.
And it was like he wanted me to know that he had always loved me. But just as much as I believed I was a victim of my culture, he was also a victim of the same culture. He was doing the best he knew how to do, coming from the culture that he came from. And what I realized is that when we leave our bodies, we don't just leave behind our physical body. We leave behind our gender, our beliefs, our race, our religion, our culture, and all the baggage that we've accumulated during this lifetime. All of that is part of being here. It doesn't cross over. It doesn't come with you to the other side. You're able to see it and evaluate it and understand why you made those choices. In fact, from that perspective, life actually makes sense. You're like, oh, no wonder I did this. Oh my God, no wonder that happened. No wonder I got cancer. Of course, that's what I was doing this to my body, and I was, and it wasn't my fault. And this is how I was groomed. And so you see it all. You see your whole lifetime, and you understand everything, and everything seems to make sense. And the clarity was just really incredible. And all you feel for everyone while you're in that state, everyone, even if they've hurt you, all you feel is unconditional love. Because what is so glaring is the limitations of being here. Suddenly you can see, wow, I had to squeeze myself into this little being, into this limited existence, whereas that's not who I really am.
God, I have so many questions. I have so many questions. I don't want to get you off topic, but I feel like I have to ask them right now or we're going to forget. And then we can come back. We'll come back, everybody, to what else happens. But because my questions for you when you're saying this are, okay, so one, okay, so you learn all this stuff, right? We know you eventually come back because here you are sitting with us telling us the story. How do you live in the world now, right? How do you live in the world? And on top of that, why? Why do we have to be put back? Why do we have to exist in these little things with these little, you know what I mean? Like,
yes.
How do you do it and why? And why is it like that? Do you have those answers?
Well, I'm going to tell you. So the reason I share my story is so that people can kind of understand how it is when we're not in our bodies.
Yes.
And so first of all, when no part of me wanted to come back.
Yes.
But when you do come back, or because I did come back, it feels like you can't bring everything back at once because you can't put them into words. There are no words. And I sometimes use this analogy that imagine if because there's no language to describe it.
Right.
We haven't developed a language. But I sometimes use this analogy of imagine if you were told from the time you were really young, as soon as you were able to understand your parents, you were told, don't ever open your eyes. Keep your eyes closed as you navigate the world, because opening your eyes will actually distract you from what's really important. And imagine if every child is told that. So we all grow up with our eyes closed, and we create a world that is for people who don't use their eyes. So it's a world created by unsighted people for unsighted people. So everything we've developed from a place of not having sight and for people who don't have sight. So our technology will be developed for people to navigate the world without sight. Now, as you grow up, because you haven't used your sight forever, your eyelids, the muscles atrophy. So you can't even open them anymore. It's a struggle to open them. And so if you have a world where everybody's like that, you're educated as four sensory beings. And so you don't develop language for things like color or sky or bird or height, because you can't see those things. The other things you don't have is art, aesthetics. Everything is built for function, not for aesthetics. So it's a whole different world you've built. But imagine if somebody suddenly discovers, oh, there's another world. They open their eyes and they discover there's this other world. They don't have the words to describe it, but that world is here. It exists. It's another level, another dimension. That's what it felt like.
Wow.
So it's like, how do you bring that world here and share it with everyone? So the challenge is less of me living from that space, but more of me trying to tell everyone and explain how it is to do that. But it is challenging. It really feels like that was too big to bring in one go. And so I had to live it out. And I know this is very abstract, but I had to, while I was here in the body, after I came back in the body, I couldn't share it all at once. I couldn't show it, share it, demonstrate it. People challenged me. People debunked me.
Wow, right.
But it's when they started to see my life pan out. They saw me heal rapidly. I have the medical records. I started to talk about it. And they said, oh, you're not being realistic. And so, but when they saw my life change in the ways I told them, that's when they started to realize, oh, there is something to it. It unraveled. You can't just bring it down at once.
Right.
It has to unravel. It's the strangest thing, a near-death experience. Your other question, though, of why would I choose to... Was it
whoever made us, whatever... Well, this is a whole other thing, too, is like who... Yeah, like why? Like why
so
put us in these little bodies that constrict us? And
so I think a big part of it is conditioning, because even with these little bodies to express ourselves, we are so much more powerful than we've been led to believe.
Yeah.
But I do believe that every institution has limited us by, let's start by saying we do live in a very fear-based culture.
Yeah.
Like and fear shrinks you right down. The second thing is, we're told that things like our intuition and stuff like that is woo-woo. It's not. It is as strong and innate in us as our physical eyes. Hence, I used that example. You have been told from the time you're a child that that's your imagination. Your imaginary friend is not real. Whereas you completely accept that your pets are intuitive, your babies are intuitive, but your babies grow out of it.
And I think you can even feel that. I mean, you're probably in tune with your intuition, but I'm not always, but I do feel like whenever I look at a baby, I'm always like, you know something, baby.
They do. They do. And have you noticed pets, babies, they look at things that we can't see.
Yeah.
They're aware of things that are going on that we can't see.
Yeah.
It's been repressed in us.
Yeah.
So that's one part of it. So I realized that that I wouldn't lose that coming back. But the challenge is in dealing with here. I often say, and only half jokingly, not fully jokingly, it's easier being dead than it is being alive.
Yeah.
But that's not an invitation for anyone to go there.
Right. Oh gosh. Okay. So just so we can also hear the rest of your miraculous story. I still have more questions, things we'll talk about, but we stopped at seeing your father, you starting to realize like we kind of merged together, you know everything.
Or so you think
Or so
until
you
you come
think,
here and
right?
it's like, oh my God, it doesn't work.
Yeah, right? Yeah. So, and then what? Because you talked about the miraculous healing, how you kind of quote unquote proved yourself, right? So continue.
Okay, so after, let's go to, me being aware of my dad. And then I understood how every thought and every decision and every choice I'd made in my life and everything and the way that I was conditioned through no fault of my own and the beliefs I had accumulated, how all of those things together, every step of my life had contributed to me being here, lying here on this hospital bed, dying, and why it was how I had beaten myself up, made myself so small that my body was trying to communicate with me. And eventually, because I never listened to it, it got more and more serious and ended up as this cancer. So I reached a point where I was given a choice as to whether I want to come back into my body or not. And at that point, of course, while I was there, no part of me wanted to come back. And that's when I started to understand. And I felt it was my dad giving me these messages. But you see, when you're there, because there's no one actually speaking to you, it's an understanding. And so it was these beings around me that were unconditionally loving, but also communicating with me that now that you know the truth of who you really are and what the truth really is, you need to go back. And I thought, but why would I go back into that sick body? My family was suffering, I was suffering. And that's when I understood that now that you know this truth, your body will actually heal very quickly because now you understand what caused it. Your body is actually going to heal very quickly. And really one of the biggest messages I got was that I had never loved myself. And the most important thing for me was to love myself, not just my physical body, but to realize that I was a spiritual being. You see, I was always conditioned to put others before me, love others more than me. Others were more important than me. Repress your ego. The ego is bad. So I was always in service to other people. I always learned to see God in other people. I'd never learned to see God in me. And so for the first time, I realized, oh my gosh, I matter. I have a purpose. I'm here for a reason. And I have to value that. And I have to value me. For me, that was a new concept. And so that was my biggest lesson. And that's when I agreed, okay, I will come back. And that's when my dad said to me, now that you know the truth, go back and live your life fearlessly. And when I kept getting the message, live your life fearlessly, what that really means is go and be yourself fearlessly, because that's something I have never been before this. I didn't even know who I was.
All right.
And some other things that happened while I was there. I actually saw other lifetimes where I had connections with my family, my husband, and
like multiple lives. You saw other lifetimes.
Multiple lives. Okay. And I saw some scenes of this life, the future panning out. And I saw myself on stage talking to thousands of people.
Wow.
But I didn't know what I was talking about. And I was someone who was such a doormat, people pleaser. I was not somebody who would get on stage and talk. I was never a speaker, writer, nothing, none of those things. So for me, it was like, that's not me. I could never dream of a life like that. But there it was. That was my future. And I also received the message that my husband, Danny, and my purpose was linked. And if I didn't go back, he wouldn't be able to complete his purpose either. And that was, I think, one of the biggest things that pulled me. And so I made the decision to come back. And as soon as I made the decision, my physical eyes started to open in my body.
Wow. Could you imagine? I mean, I couldn't imagine that as a hospice nurse, right? Someone actively dying, then all of a sudden, bink, eyes open. Like, whoa, what the heck?
Everyone was the doctors freaked out.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And then they told my family, don't raise your hopes.
Yeah, no, this is the rally. She's coming. She's having a burst of energy. Then she's going to die shortly after. That's what I would say.
You said exactly what the doctor said. Exactly that. He said, sometimes they'll have a lucid moment before they actually die. And my brother had just arrived on a flight to catch me before I died. And so the doctors felt that I was having this lucid moment to greet and acknowledge my brother, but I was going to die very shortly after. And the doctors told my family, she's still very critical. Don't raise your hopes.
Yeah.
So you completely relate to that.
Yes. Yeah. I would have been that health. I mean, I wouldn't have been the doctor, but I would have been the nurse being like, no, you guys. Yeah.
Yeah. Don't raise your hopes.
Don't raise your hopes.
Yeah.
And I still think there's some truth to that, which we'll get into. But
There is.
we can still talk about that stuff. But I want to hear. I mean, but this is also miraculous, and I have experienced something like this. My one miracle, I call it, where someone came back like that, and I actually was the person telling the family that this is sorry to be the bearer of bad news, but she's not better. She's gonna die shortly, and then she didn't. She did die 3 months later, but she lived for 3 months very beautifully and very fully alive. Anyway, go ahead.
Oh, wow. That's beautiful that she did that.
Yeah.
And so my eyes opened, and then, of course, the doctors said all that, and but not in front of me. They said it separately. But I started to say to my family, I'm not going to die. It's not my time. And I said, Dad is here. Dad's here. I still had one foot on that side. Even though my eyes were open, I wasn't completely here yet. Wow. And so so the doctor, they called the doctor to come in, and they said, the doctor told my family, the drugs are just messing with her mind. She's just seeing things, she's hallucinating, and they started to say things like that. And then this doctor came in who I had never seen before I went into the coma, and I addressed him by name, and he said, how do you know my name? And I said, aren't you the doctor that came in this morning to check the fluid in my lungs? And he said, yeah, but you were in the coma. You couldn't possibly know that. So he thought it was weird, but he just tried to shake it off. He dismissed it. Yeah. And he left the room. And then that's when I started to tell my family, why are they all so shocked? And how come that doctor that said was surprised I recognized him? Why was he so surprised? Isn't he the doctor that said I won't even make it through the night? And that's when my husband said, he didn't even say that in the room. He said it down the hallway at the nurse's station. You couldn't possibly have heard him. And I started to say all these things like, oh, and that's the nurse that was looking for veins to draw blood. And the nurse said, it was a male nurse, and he had said that, oh, her veins are completely retracted. I can't find a vein to draw blood from. And they were all shocked. And so over the next few days, the tumors actually were shrinking visibly. And I started to say, you can take these tubes out. You can take the breathing, the oxygen tube out. I don't need it. And sure enough, they were finding I was breathing on my own without any help. And I said, you can take the nutrition tube out. I'm ready to eat real food. And over the next 4 or 5 days, the tumors had actually softened just to the touch. And then they started sending me in for the scans and the x-rays. And over the next 3 weeks, they just completely dissolved and disappeared. And in 5 weeks, they sent me home to live my life. They couldn't find any trace of cancer. They did every possible test. They tapped my spine for like a spinal biopsy.
Because they were trying to find like how this happened? Were they trying to figure out like Why is this happening? In
So
the
for
sense of
5 whole weeks,
Yeah.
they could not believe that it
Yes,
was gone. They saw it
yes,
shrinking,
yes.
but they kept saying, cancer doesn't disappear. We have to find it. We can't let you go home because it will come back. It'll flare up.
Yes.
So they did every test, and it was so painful. And they kept sending the different test results to different labs to get it double checked. And they themselves just didn't know what to make of it.
When they discharged you, were there eventually doctors and healthcare workers being like, I don't know what to tell you. You're a miracle. Did they eventually start saying that to you?
Most of them did. So I had, because I dealt with it for 4 years, I had multiple doctors. There was one doctor who, this really was sad for me. In the hospital, he was like that. This was a miracle. This is divine intervention. And he said, I've not seen this before. And then I told him about the near-death experience. And he said, you're not the first patient to say something like that to me, and I was so happy that he believed me. Afterwards, he was asked, I was actually interviewed because of the miracle, because of what people were saying. You're so lucky to be alive. It's a miracle. It was a big deal that I was interviewed for a newspaper. And, but when they interviewed this guy, so I said, interview him, interview Dr. Chan, because I'd spoken, when he was interviewed by the paper, he denied all that.
Wow.
Which made me really sad.
Yeah.
The other doctors said, we don't blame him because, and this is 20 years ago, and he was at the top of the oncology department. He doesn't want people to think that he buys into this.
Yeah.
And he was like the most senior oncologist at the top teaching hospital in Hong Kong. And so I was sad that he did that publicly, but 4 other doctors backed me up and said, there's no way. And they even said that what he is saying doesn't even make sense when you look at her medical records.
Yeah, I mean, that wouldn't... Yeah, whatever you believe in, it's still like, this is pretty cool, right? Even if you don't want to believe in that you did have a near-death experience, the fact that you were on death's door, woke up, tumor shrank, cancer gone in 5 weeks, that's at the least
exactly.
Cool,
so he said she's lucky to be alive. She's lucky to be alive.
Yeah.
But he said, but there's nothing but the everything that I experienced was the drugs messing with my head, and he was saying that, and we were there and removed fluid from her lungs and things like that. Now, my other doctors knew. Now, this doctor wasn't even my actual doctor.
Yeah.
My doctor came in and backed me up, and I've even done a video with him. And I just wanted to share this because my doctor knew that I was getting the fluid taken out of my lungs every 3 weeks for at least a year, every 3 weeks. And
I mean, you're a classic hospice patient. Like you were a classic hospice patient.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean,
yes. And so it was interesting how the medical, but again, except for this one, the only reason I mention this one, and I'll tell you why I mention it, because any doctor you show my records to, any doctor that was actually also with me, apart from this one who was there, has said, there's no way, it's a miracle. The reason why I'm mentioning this doctor is because whenever anybody interviews me, because of that one time he came in the newspaper, whenever anyone interviews me, whenever I do a podcast, there are always people who are saying, wait, you missed what this doctor said.
Yep.
That's why I needed to say that. And since then, even my own doctor, Dr. Brian Walker, has even done a video with me to make sure that people know what really happened.
Right.
And so I have a video on YouTube with him, and I just wanted to mention that.
That you know what's out there, right? You know what's being said. Well,
Yeah.
Okay, so there's so many ways for me to go here, but the one spot I do want to go just because I'm a healthcare worker, right? And I see, so just not even being devil's advocate, because I've had many spiritual experiences where I feel like I kind of know the truth, at least my truth, which is what you say from what I've heard and seen in other interviews, that I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but like all there is love. We are all connected. Like I've had many truths like that kind of given to me through my life experiences, right? And and I'm a nurse who also has witnessed miracles, and I think I've had a shared death experience where someone has shown me what it was like to die, and it was very beautiful. And I think I've seen angels, and so there's things about me that I'm like, yes, I'm into this stuff, right? And it's hard for me to be like, quote unquote, all in because because we're built to die. At least from what I know now, our bodies are biologically built to die, right? And I've seen hospice patients on hospice who maybe didn't have to die because of like sometimes I've seen people with breast cancer, and certain types of breast cancers, like it's not a death sentence, right? But they are dying now because they didn't get the standardized treatment because they wanted to do alternative things, or I mean, for lack of better things, like pray the cancer away, or believe that it will go away, and then it doesn't, right? So it's hard for me to not mention that. Like even hearing you say, like, I believe I caused myself to get cancer because I lived a life full of fear. I think your story is miraculous, and I believe you. And I still want to challenge you there because I want to be like,
I get it.
This could really hurt people if they really start being like tell that to my 24-year-old patient who's dying of glioblastoma. Like he's like this because he feared it. Do you know what I mean? Or
I know exactly what you're saying,
yes.
and I'm glad you're going there.
Yeah.
I love it because this is important. Because I too am so hesitant to share certain aspects because I don't want to be irresponsible. I don't want to tell people, don't see your doctor, don't go for your checkups. I'm never going to say that.
Yeah.
I'm never going to say that you can just love yourself to healing. And I'll tell you, from my perspective, from having experienced what I have, it gives you a different vantage point. And so bear with me with this.
Yes.
And I want to put in this disclaimer. Please, if anyone's listening, I am not giving you medical advice. I'm actually talking from a vantage point that I try and help people to reach this vantage point where it doesn't matter whether you have the chemo or whether you have the alternative. I will never stray you away. When you believe in something and you feel it's right for you, I'm not going to tell you it's not right for you. Because the most important thing is for you to actually, number one, is to not be in constant stress, anxiety, and fear. That is actually destroying your life. The stress, anxiety, fear, the pathological living of that. That's one. Number two, do you have a life that you look forward to living? If you hate your life, you hate your job, you're not in a good relationship, you don't look forward to living every day. And I'm not talking about someone who is naturally reaching the end of their life and their kids and grandkids have grown up and you feel complete. That's great. It's time to move on. But I'm talking about someone who's younger in terms of years and you could still have years to go. But if you are lonely, if you are grieving, if you've lost loved ones and you don't feel you have any reason to wake up in the morning, then sometimes your body can develop a way out for you. It can develop an illness. People who are passionate about their lives and have something to look forward to are more likely to heal than those who don't. But the thing is, I'm not going to say don't see a doctor, but do develop those other areas. I do say, though, that if your medical treatment is making you fearful and anxious, I speak to doctors. I actually talk to a lot of doctors. I've done interviews with doctors where I want doctors to know that you have to make sure that at the very minimum that when a patient comes in to see you, when they walk out of your clinic or your office, they should at least feel emotionally, mentally better than when they walked in. They should at least feel more supported or more hopeful than when they walked in. If they walk out feeling worse, that feeling worse is actually going to impact their body in a way that's not helping the disease.
Yeah. Yeah.
Those are the kinds of things
yeah.
I want people to know.
Yes. And I think you will tell me what you think about this. Like, I think speaking the truth, because it's like, if you haven't had this near-death experience where you get this vantage point, right? Which but also you're saying you can get to that vantage point without having a near-death experience.
Yes,
that's the
that's
point.
what I'm trying to say.
That's the point, yeah.
That's why I share what I share.
Yes.
I'm trying to get people to this vantage point.
Yes.
I'm even trying to get doctors, nurses, clinicians to
Yes.
this vantage point. So I'm not here knocking the system.
Yes.
And I'm not here telling people don't have the chemo. I'm not here to say any of that. I'm trying to show people another vantage point.
Yes.
Now, here's the thing. You can believe or you can think that, oh, I'm really scared of this chemo and everything, really scared, so I'm going to go the alternative. And this happened to me. I'm going to tell you this. This happened to me. I saw 2 people die in front of my eyes when they were having absolutely what's called the best treatment in the most expensive cancer hospitals that money can buy. But I watched them deteriorate and I watched them die. I was diagnosed and I got so scared. I thought it was a death sentence because I saw 2 people die. And because I thought it was a death sentence, first of all, I said I don't want to go the conventional route because I don't see it working for the people close to me. And I started to do alternative. But when I went the alternative route, I was so scared of the cancer. I was so scared of everything. And I was surrounded by people who said, you're crazy. Why are you going the alternative route? Don't take any chances. And I said, what do you mean don't take any chances? I'm not seeing it working. And then I obsessed over getting rid of the cancer. I obsessed over getting all the antioxidants and eating organic. I mean, I still eat organic, but at that time, 20 plus years ago, it was harder to get hold of things, but I was doing wheatgrass shots every day. But the point is not about what I was eating or not eating, because even today I eat pretty healthy, but for different reasons. At that time, the reason I was eating everything I was eating came from a fear of cancer.
Yeah, it came from the fear of it.
It came from the fear. And it came from I need to eradicate this cancer. Today, I eat healthy because I want to live long. I love my life. And it feels good. It makes me feel good.
Because I always say, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but along the fear thing, I always talk about how because people always go, well, are you afraid of death? Or how do I not be afraid of death? And my answer is always if you're afraid of death, just say it. There's something about, to me, saying the truth.
Yes.
Talking to somebody saying, I'm afraid. I don't want to die. I'm scared. There's something about that.
Yes.
And having someone else hear the truth and not go, no, don't be afraid, but just sit there and hear it, that takes the claws out of it a little bit. It almost makes you less afraid. And maybe even sometimes when I'm feeling really bad, and this is, now I'm getting off on a tangent, but I want to hear what you have to say about this, because sometimes when I'm feeling really bad, I don't want to feel bad, right? And I just go, I don't want to feel bad. What can I do to not feel bad? I have to get out of this, fix it, don't feel bad. And sometimes I feel like God, or whatever you want to call God, has said to me, love that too. The more you love the thing, even the thing that you think is bad and you don't want it, and then it dissipates. Even the just feeling anxious, the more I can just hug my little anxious self and be like, I love you. It's okay. It kind of dissipates the anxiety.
I love it. I love what you're saying. And that's 100%.
Yeah.
That we have to be careful not to fear the fear.
Yeah.
Because, I always worry people are going to say, oh, Anita Moorjani said she got cancer because of the fear. And now I'm feeling fear of cancer. And so you don't want that. So what I do tell people is, first of all, embrace the fear and love it. That's part of loving yourself. Love every part of yourself, including the fear. Remember, I didn't love myself and I felt the fear. So love yourself and love the fear. And then here's the second step. It actually starts to dissipate. But the thing to do that really helps is you ask yourself, what do I want to see in my life instead? Now, the reason you feel fear, let's say from a diagnosis, and the reason you feel fear is because in your mind, you've already created a downward trajectory of where your health is going from here. You've done this whole projection in your mind that, oh my God, I got this diagnosis. I'm so scared. It's a death sentence. My health is going downhill from here. That's what you've created. I tell people, I want you to create a wellness trajectory. In your mind, I want you to think, what would I like to see instead? And nobody knows whether they're actually going to die now or not, or from this diagnosis or not. Look what happened to me. And we know many people that have healed. And so start to plan a life of living as a well person. So usually when I'm dealing with someone, if someone is sick, has been diagnosed and they're in front of me, I actually say to them, if you had a clean bill of health, if the doctor said to you, you've got a clean bill of health, you are well, you can go and live your life fearlessly, what would you do? What are you going to plan to do for the rest of your life? What would you do to celebrate today? Start living that life. Start planning as though you have a long life ahead of you. Because the more you feel that way, the more your body is actually going to respond. We all know that the cells in our bodies respond to how we feel. When I came back from the near-death experience, I was still, for all intents and purposes, I looked critically ill.
Yeah.
And I looked critically ill for a good month, more than a month, like a good 2-3 months at least. And I started to gain weight and I got better and better. But I was already walking, but I was seeing the progress. But the thing is, when I came back from that near-death experience, from the minute I came out of the coma, I knew I was already healed, but my body had to catch up.
Yeah.
And it's that mind. It's not just a mindset. It's an energy. And so this is why I tell people that, why is it that you want to get well? Is it to go back and live the life you used to live, the life that actually got you here? Again, I don't want people to think it's their fault they got sick. I'm not blaming the victim. But what I do want to do is I want to empower people to know that they can do something to contribute to their healing.
Well, first off, yes, thank you. And I always take it from, I'm always thinking about like, how would I, because from my perspective, right, as a hospice nurse, the thing I always tell people is, one, say the truth and prepare, right? Because I would say, just to be a little bit of a devil's advocate, is just like, to me, right, there are certain diagnoses where it is, you are terminal. Like I think about glioblastoma, okay? But not everyone dies from it, technically. Not everyone who gets it dies from that disease. But 99% of people do, right? So I would want, but I think you could, for me, I could take what you're saying and still put it on to people who are likely still going to die from that disease, but they're not dead yet.
Yes.
So like, how can you take what Anita is saying and put that onto your life now? You know, and because I always think it's important for people to have at least like plan, like hope for the best, plan for the rest. Because I don't want people to live in complete denial, because I've seen that really hurt people.
Yes.
When they do that. But there's still a way, I think, where someone can take what you're saying and live out the rest of their life. Use that to live out the rest of their lives. And maybe that means they are cured and they don't actually die from glioblastoma. Or maybe that means that they had a beautiful last 6 months because they were able to
exactly. So
look out like that.
Yeah, it doesn't hurt either way to actually live with hope and live.
Yeah.
Because the one thing that I know I appreciated more than anything when I was sick and when I was deteriorating was that my husband never treated me like I was dying, at least verbally. I mean, of course, I needed to be cared for, and anybody could see I was dying. But the way that he would speak to me was not like these were my final days.
Yeah.
It was more like, it was more like, so what do you want to do now? Shall we? He would actually say, because he knows I love cooking, and he would say, and he would be my hands and eyes. So he would say, come on, let me pull up a chair for you in the kitchen and you can supervise me while I cook. Tell me what I need to do. And he would make sure life was still fun every day. It wasn't depressing. And it's things like that. If people can live from a place of still not constantly focused on the illness and the treatments. What I tell people, even people who are going for their treatments, generally you have in the beginning when someone's been diagnosed and then they start to go for their treatments, they're not showing illness. Like they can still look like healthy people when you see them. I see them at my events. And this is what I tell them. The ones that are there, that are moving, that are traveling, but they're going for chemo or radiation, I actually tell them, or I ask them, what are you focused on right now? And they go, I'm focused on this disease and healing this disease, and I have to go for my treatment. So I tell them, shift your focus. I want you to start building that life that you're going to live when you're fully well, and that's going to be your focus. Eradicating disease is not going to be your focus. You have to move that focus. You have to. And so instead of waking up every day going, oh my gosh, I'm dealing with this cancer, I'm dealing with this disease, and how do I eradicate? What more can I do to eradicate it? Start planning a future that you're looking forward to.
Yeah. Okay. There's so much, Anita. There's so much. I definitely going to have you back. Okay. So before I do close out though, is there there's so much we'll have to have you back, but is there anything that you really want to say before we go? Anything I didn't touch on?
I just want to say to people who are, well, first of all, I think you're super awesome. I love what you're doing. Thank you for doing what you're doing. And I loved that you had me on, and I loved being able to I loved that you played devil's advocate, because that's important.
Yeah.
And I just want to tell people out there who are listening, if you're going through an illness or if you have loved ones going through an illness, the best thing you can do is to raise your vibe and focus on wellness, focus on living your life with passion and joy and why you want to live life and what you want to create, rather than constantly thinking about eradicating the illness.
Okay. Where can they find you? What's your books titles? Where can they find you? Do you have a website?
Oh, everything. So my website is anitamoorjani.com. And they'll find everything on there, including links to the books. The book that I wrote about the illness is called Dying to Be Me. And I have another book called What If This Is Heaven, which is about bringing that realm here. And the third book is Sensitive is the New Strong, which talks about empathy, compassion, kindness, and how people who are the most empathic, kind, and sensitive are the ones who actually tend to absorb a lot of things that causes them to be ill. So it's just a book to help to strengthen people who are sensitive. And I also have a membership platform called the Sanctuary, or the Anita Moorjani Sanctuary, where I take people on deep guided journeys and where they can talk to their cells and talk to their peeps on the other side.
Nice. One last question for people who are grieving, because I do feel like a lot of my listeners are people who have their loved ones have died. They're grieving their loved ones. I know this is a big thing, but what would you say to them about their loved ones who have died?
So I want to assure people that your loved ones are not suffering. Yeah. They are fine, and they want you to find your joy again. They want you to heal from the grief. And regardless of how your loved ones crossed over, even if they took their own life, they're not being judged or punished. Because remember, it takes a lot for somebody to take their own life. It's a lot of suffering before they go, so they're not being punished. The other thing I want to say is if somebody did take their own life, I want the loved ones who are living to know that it's not your fault. There's nothing you could have done. That was their path. And if they could communicate with you, this is what they would tell you. They would tell you it's not your fault. It was something deeper within them. Don't ever take the blame. Your loved ones, not only are they not suffering, they are possibly guiding you, helping you to find your joy again. And if you have lost a partner, a spouse, your loved one might actually be helping you to find somebody else because they don't want you to suffer.
See? Closing it out with a good one. I love it. I have chills. 1, because it's freezing in here, but 2, because you're giving me chills. Everything you're saying. Thank you so much, Anita. Really.
You are so welcome. It's such a pleasure to do this.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, everybody, that's it for this episode of It's Okay, We're All Gonna Die. And make sure you tune in next week. And don't forget to like, subscribe, rate, or review wherever you get this podcast. And we'll see you again.
It's okay, we're all gonna die. It's okay, we're all gonna die. It's okay, we're all gonna die.